Dr. Sundermann, would you like to go live? There she is. Hi there.
Ted.
Welcome. Welcome. It's so good
Thank
to see you.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very excited to share my personal and professional passion about movement and nature.
Fantastic. Now, if people have questions, please put them in the Q&A rather than the chat. It's easier for us to follow them there. And go ahead, Melissa, go ahead and share your screen, if you could, please.
Okay.
And I'm sitting out in my gazebo in Western New York, and so you may hear an occasional tractor go by because I'm in farm country. And you're also probably going to hear birds. So I enjoy being outside as well. All right, take it away, Melissa.
All right, can you, okay, you see my screen?
Yep, and I'm going to disappear now. So you're out. You're on.
Okay, very good. So like Ted said, my topic is moving mountains, the power of movement in nature to reach the peak of well-being. So we're gonna start off with a little humor. The exercise pill. So the physician says to treat your high blood pressure, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, osteoporosis, take this new pill every day. Take it out for a jog, then take it to the gym, then take it for a bike ride. So if it was only that easy, right, to get our patients to move. So as I think most of you on this webinar tonight are familiar with lifestyle medicine and our 6 official pillars, which movement and physical activity is certainly one of them. So if we look at this graphic, we can see that we have become very sedentary as a society. And this graphic only goes through 2010, so we can only imagine where we're at in 2022. You know, we see during the World War I and the Depression, World War II, that we were active, we didn't have modern conveniences, then came along the motor vehicles and we didn't have to walk everywhere, we could just hop in the car. Then we got our modern conveniences such as washing machines and refrigerators. So we didn't have to go out and hang our clothes and we didn't have to walk to the corner store every day to get our food and our beverages. And then along came the television. And boy, we could sit in front of that TV for, you know, hours. And then the invention of the computer, which of course has, you know, been so key to our advancing society, but also to our sedentary behavior. And then the internet, where we can find anything on the internet from the convenience of our home. No need to go to a library to get our encyclopedias. As we've transitioned into the pandemic and people working remotely, I know with my own patients, I've seen that people have become even more sedentary. So over this course, we've seen about a 70% reduction in daily movement and exercise. So we follow the same guidelines for ACLM as American College of Sports Medicine and CDC, that we do recommend 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity aerobic activity. So that breaks down to about 25 to 30 minutes per day. And we also recommend about 2 times per week of doing strength training. So there's a big push that along with vital signs of blood pressure, heart rate, temperature, weight, height, body mass index, respirations, we also should be including physical activity as a vital sign and asking our patients, are you moving? What type of movement? How long? What's the frequency? And this is an example of a prescription for exercise that Exercises Medicine, American College of Sports Medicine. We always want to use our SMART acronym with being specific and measurable and attainable time. So this is a good example. It's available online. If any practitioners or even as a participant, if you wanted to be able to track exercise and have it be very specific. And I think a good thing to know about moderate intensity versus vigorous, people are like, what does that mean? Do I need a heart rate monitor? And no, you don't need anything fancy. A good way to measure moderate aerobic activity is if you were walking or jogging with a friend or riding a bike with a friend, you could carry on a conversation. But if your friend said, hey, will you sing me that song we just heard on the radio? You would actually get out of breath doing that. So that would be moderate intensity activity. Now, for vigorous activity, that would be you'd actually get out of breath trying to carry on a conversation. So that's a really simple way to know what moderate intensity exercise feels like. And then we mentioned the strength training and trying to aim for about 2 days a week. So we know that there's so many benefits of exercise. And I oftentimes substitute the word exercise for, I use movement. I think exercise sometimes to my patients connotates having to go to a gym and having to lift heavy weights and be this bodybuilder. And I just say it's movement. And that means any way, shape, or form you like to move your body. So we know that the benefits of exercise have been shown over and over again, and improves our sleep quality. It can improve anxiety, reduces blood pressure. It can lower the risk of heart disease and stroke and type 2 diabetes. It can lower the risk of certain cancers, helps us to maintain a healthy body mass index. It can help improve bone health and osteoporosis, and can reduce the risk of dementia. So exercise benefits with sleep. By adding exercise, we can actually decrease the time to fall asleep. We can actually get into a deeper sleep and REM sleep, which we know that that's really where the healing takes place. When we get into that deep sleep in REM is when our lymphatic system, we've all heard of the lymphatic system, but we actually have a lymphatic system that kicks in while we sleep that helps to rid toxins, including amyloid protein that can accumulate, and that can be one of the contributors to dementia. And it can also decrease nighttime awakenings. So this was a poll the Huffington Post put out that actually asked individuals about their overall sleep quality. And as you can see, the more that people had activity, we see more green, and people rated their sleep as very good. So we see from no activity to light exercise to moderate exercise up to vigorous, there's a whole slope of improvement of our personal related sleep quality. So we've mentioned cancer prevention. Well, exercise can help reduce the risk of breast cancer, endometrial cancer, kidney cancer, bladder cancer, esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, colon cancer. So exercise during COVID, we saw those of us who are actually treating patients and our patients that were more susceptible to COVID-19. I know I was personally redeployed to be a hospitalist for about 12 months during COVID, and I was doing all the admissions. And time and again, the patients I was admitting really did have chronic disease, underlying chronic disease that were coming down with COVID and severe enough to have to be meeting criteria for admission. So COVID-19 and lifestyle, we saw because we had to socially isolate, our physical activity went down by about 33%. Our sitting time went up by about 28%. We're working from home. Some of that is continued. So again, we wanted to advocate for getting outdoors. Fortunately, during the COVID, I mean, that was my saving grace, is I could still go for a run outside. I could go for a walk in the woods and be socially distanced. So really we see that physical activity, even preventing serious COVID-19, was important. So health benefits of nature. That's why we're here tonight. That's what I am passionate about. So we all have heard of Hippocrates, right? The father of medicine. And I just love this quote: "The physician treats, but nature heals." So when I am meeting new patients or I'm getting lifestyle medicine consults referred to me, and I go through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine official 6 pillars, I always say, and then Dr. Sundermann has an unofficial 7th pillar of lifestyle medicine, and that is daily exposure to nature and fresh air. Now, mind you, I live in Michigan. We definitely have 4 seasons. I think that winter lasts far too long. And so when patients look at me and they say, daily exposure to fresh air and nature, my gosh, Dr. Sundermann, it's February and it's like 10 degrees. So I respond to them and I say, well, there's no bad weather, just inappropriate clothing. So get your coat on, get your hat on, and get outside every single day. Again, another quote from Hippocrates: "Nature itself is the best physician." So this is what I propose. This is the pill. It's a nature pill, and does it exist? Or does this exist? So nature doesn't have to be green. There's blue nature too. Well, this question and the healing power of nature actually came well before my time. And it's the concept of Shinrin-yoku. And Shinrin-yoku is a Japanese practice that promotes visiting the forest for relaxation and to improve one's health. It literally means forest bathing. So here in this country, you'll hear, and maybe you've heard the term forest bathing. So what is forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku? Well, Shinrin in Japanese means forest, and yoku means birth. So Shinrin-yoku means bathing in the forest atmosphere. And it's really just taking in the forest through all of our senses. And that doesn't necessarily connotate or mean exercise, hiking, or jogging. It's simply being in nature and connecting with nature through our senses of sight, and hearing, and taste, smell, and touch.
So
By
is
the
it
Forest Agency of Japan. And the main idea and
Dr.
goal was to
Sundermann? Dr. Sundermann, you froze a little bit there. So you might want to just go back like 5 seconds, if you could please.
okay.
But it was
Did you hear this slide?
No, I think you're okay.
Yeah, okay, so in 1982 is when this concept was birthed, and the main idea behind it was and goal was to reduce stress in workers. Sounds like a pretty good idea. We really want to take. We're hearing about this all right now in healthcare of burnout, and so the idea was to get healthier workers. And so in 2004. The Forest Agency in Japan, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that, organized a project team to investigate this effect of Shinrin-yoku on human health. And they invested a mere $1.5 million, which is now a drop in the bucket for the initial project. And one of the key members was Dr. King Lee. And so this is his book, Forest Bathing. So if you want to learn more, I highly recommend this book. And the research work of Dr. King Lee was, he really wanted to look at the relationship between Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, and immune function. And his thought rationale was, it's well known that the immune system, including natural killer cells, play a vital role in the defense against bacteria, viruses, tumors, so we're talking cancers and illness. And it already has been shown that stress inhibits immune function. So the question he posed was could forest environments, such as Shinrin-yoku, actually reduce stress? So he speculated that forest environment and forest bathing may have a beneficial effect on immune function by reducing stress. So we know that natural killer cells are very much involved in immunity and stress. Individuals with lower natural killer activity show higher incidence rates of cancer, and if you have higher NK activity, you have lower incidence rates. So we could just see those graphs both along with males and females, the relationship between natural killer cells and immunity. So the very first forest bathing study was done in Japan around 2005, and this was done in the Iliyama city, and his hypothesis was that the forest could enhance the human natural killer activity and expression of anti-cancer patients. And this was published in the International Journal of Immunopathology and Pharmacology. And so subjects were taken into the forest for 2 days. What he found was they measured the human natural killer activity, and this was within males. They measured it at baseline before going into the forest, then at day 1, and then at day 2. So definitely saw an increase in the natural killer activity and even got better at day 2. So then he said, how about if maybe it's just like leaving your own environment. So why don't we just go to a place that's not a forest and let's just go to an urban setting. Again, measure natural killer level before day 1, day 2. Didn't see nearly the bump that we saw when you were in the forest and in nature. So this activity of being in the forest, they measured before day 1, day 2, then they measured it out to day 30. And lo and behold, in both males and females, that even a month after your exposure for 2 days in nature, you're still seeing added benefits of immunity with elevated natural killer cells. So then Dr. Lee was not on the study, but they wanted to take this further and look at Shinrin-yoku on a field experiment, a much larger field experiment in Japan. So the field experiments were 24 forests across Japan, and each experiment had 12 subjects. So they had 280 subjects total. So the first day in each of those 12, 6 subjects went into the forest and six subjects went into urban settings. And they both wanted to see if you're just literally forest bathing of sitting there or just sitting in an urban versus if you did some gentle walking. So they sat for 15 minutes and they walked for 15 minutes. The second day they did a crossover. So each group went to the different environment and did, sitting for 15 minutes and walking for 15 minutes. And really the objective data that they were looking at were salivary cortisol involved in stress, blood pressure involved in stress, chronic disease, and pulse rate. So what they found, and this is looking at change in salivary cortisol, you can see on the left is just viewing or just sitting in nature or urban versus walking. And again, we're seeing lower cortisol levels in the forest area compared to urban dwelling areas. Similar trend with walking. So let's look at pulse rate. Again, we're going to see a very similar graph where just sitting there, looking at nature versus urban, your pulse rate is lower, and similar with walking. And again, blood pressure, just simply being in a forest area compared to an urban dwelling, both at the top systolic blood pressure readings and the bottom diastolic blood pressure readings. So this study was done at the University of Michigan, Go Blue. That's my undergrad right there. And they really want to again look at salivary cortisol levels as well as amylase and trying to get the idea of the sweet spot. And subjects were told to get outside. They could pick the amount of time that they wanted to be out there. They could pick the activity. They could pick where they wanted to be. So there was, just allowed them to go to places they felt that would be soothing to them. And they wanted to know, how long do you have to be out there to see any of the benefits? So what they found, and if you look over to the left, we've got Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And then if we look to the right with the percent change in cortisol levels, it looks like the sweet spot is about 21 to 30 minutes of time spent in nature. So you don't have to go out, for a 2-hour hike or a 2-hour just, journaling in nature. It looks like 21 to 30 minutes. And guess what? That falls right in line with what the American College of Lifestyle Medicine recommends daily, is about 30 minutes of movement. So this is just a graph. We know that cortisol has a diurnal effect, and you can see that with the blue lines. And then we saw what the nature experience effect with the gray line, it lowered cortisol levels. And then the nature experience effect, in additional to that diurnal effect. And again, it looks like really our sweet spot again is that 20 to 30 minute interval of where we can really see decreases in salivary cortisol. And so this was a meta-analysis with Andy Jones from the UK. And he basically, we know with meta-analysis, pulled a bunch of data from a bunch of studies just to see, are there health benefits to the great outdoors? And so this is his systematic review and meta-analysis. And what he found is that looking at all of these studies, that green space exposure was truly associated with a wide range health benefits across 143 studies. The meta-analysis shows statistically significant reductions in diastolic blood pressure, salivary cortisol, and heart rate. Goes very well with the studies that we just reviewed. And the meta-analysis found statistically significant decreases in incidence of diabetes, all-cause, and cardiovascular mortality. He does admit some of the weakness was there were a number of the meta-analysis were limited by poor quality study, but really it shows that green space and street greenery may form part of a multifaceted approach to improve a wide range of health outcomes. So why do people love forests? Well, it's quiet, there's beautiful scenery, it feels protected. I know I live in the woods personally, and I get up in the morning and I think, wow, there's no wind today. Everything is just nice and calm. And then I go outside of my property. It's like, wow, the wind is really whipping it up. So you feel very protected and safe in forests. And there's just this clean, fresh air in the forest and a special smell. You can't really describe what that is other than this clean, healing smell. So how to enjoy forest bathing? We touched on that we really experience forest bathing with all 5 of our senses. With our sense of sight, we can appreciate the green color and the forest landscaping, maybe the trees turning colors. The sense of smell, there's phytoncides, which we'll touch on later, and the fragrance. Sense of hearing, we hear the forest sounds, maybe trees crackling, or the birds and animals sounds and leaves rustling. The sense of touch, we touch trees and we see moss on the ground. We might want to feel it because it looks nice and soft. The foliage, we want to, if they seem like safe animals, pet the animals. Sense of taste, eating foods, preferably the safe ones, and just tasting that natural feel of the forest. So biophilia, this is in my research, these are some terms that I came across. And this is a term originated in 1973 by Eric Fromm, and he was a social psychologist. And it's described as a passionate love of life and all that is alive. It is the wish to further growth, whether in a person, plant, an idea, or a social group. And it's this emotional connection of human beings to other living organisms. And I love this picture of this human connecting with this tree, and the tree sort of grabbing and connecting with this human. Not only aids in survival, but also broader human fulfillment. I mean, we know innately, probably if a snake, somehow we know that might be dangerous, or a big tiger running at us. And natural environments are one of the few places that we can experience all 5 of our senses. So we mentioned phytoncides. So what is a phytoncide? Well, it originates, and the word comes from phyton, meaning plant, and cide, meaning the sterilizing power. And that's how we come up with phytoncides. And these are actually oils that are released from all things green and living. And when we are in the forest, we inadvertently inhale these phytoncides, and they can enhance immune system function, as opposed to being in these urban dwellings where we've got air pollutants and chemicals. And we know that can cause pulmonary issues, as well as a whole slew of other issues. So just being in nature, we're inhaling these phytoncides. And there's various different kinds, beta pinene and beta myrcene and camphene and alpha pinene and D-limonene. And what do these actually do? Well, they can relieve stress by strengthening immunity, and they suppress cortisol and stress hormones. They can be freshening, they can restore energy with helping by treating insomnia and inducing us into a deeper sleep. They can actually improve on learning ability and concentration. And that's great for even children with ADD or concentration. Just being out in the forest can sometimes help, and also have strong antimicrobial properties. So we'll come back to Dr. Lee, who we talked about, who had one of the first studies on forest bathing. So he wanted to further investigate the power of these phytoncides. So this probably would not pass our current IRB protocol, but he had 13 subjects and literally locked them in a hotel room for 3 nights. And some of the rooms were rigged with a humidifier to vaporize stem oil from the hinoki cypress trees, and other rooms emitted ode to nothing. So what he found was that cypress sleepers experienced a 20% increase in natural killer cells during their stay, and also felt less fatigue. The control group saw absolutely no changes. So there seems to be some power in these phytoncides. So benefits of spending time in nature, we will touch on this over and over again. It'll sound like a broken record, but it can boost our mood. It can increase general feelings of happiness and well-being, generate sense of calm. It can improve our ability to pay attention and concentrate. Fosters empathy, again, that biophilia, that we're one of something bigger and larger, can help lower our stress, lessen anxiety and fear, and can cause that nervous system and deactivating the fight or flight or sympathetic system. So again, slides, children can feel less stressed, improves focus and concentration, reduces risks of chronic illnesses. Kids that spend time in nature can value their communities more and have an appreciation. We talk about it improves our sleep. And this is going to focus on just kids. And there have been studies that show just spending time in nature can increase our focus and attention, and actually decrease ADHD symptoms. It can boost performance in reading and writing. It can enhance creativity and critical thinking. It can increase enthusiasm for learning. So I think that outdoor recess is definitely still needed with all of our school children. And again, health benefits, we can see with even the elderly, and time spent outdoors with gardening can improve cognition. And think about with gardening and the fine dexterity, what that can do for as we get older and our joints get a little stiffer, just still being active and just creating some healthy movement. It can actually help out with improved distance vision by just being outside. And of course, being out in nature can increase our vitamin D levels. We know that that's how we get our vitamin D is sun exposure on our skin, other than that of taking a vitamin D supplement. It can improve balance and strength, and we can, create positive experiences leading to lifelong commitment to caring and conserving our natural resources. So again, this is just what we talked about that I just mentioned with our last slide. So this is an interesting study, and this is just basically looking at green space. And can that, not only be healing, but can it even affect behavior? So Cohen Sullivan in 2001, they did an investigation, or they did a study that looked at police reports at a large housing project in Chicago called the Ida B. Wells. And they basically, these housing projects have a series of courtyards, and they range from no greenery to mixed concrete and greenery to some courtyards actually had lush landscape of trees and grass. And they actually analyzed 98 buildings over 2 years. So what do they find? Well, they found a striking correlation between the level of greenery and number of assaults, number of homicides, number of vehicle thefts, episodes of burglary, and episodes of arson. And buildings with the highest levels of greenery had 48% fewer property crimes and 56% fewer violent crimes. So the prettier, greener courtyards actually, drew people outside. And could this have something to do with it? When they asked the residents, they said, well, we got to know each other. We had this green space. It was really attractive to be out there. We wanted to be out there. And once we got to know each other, we really wanted to keep an eye out for each other. We're not going to steal from our neighbor that, has become our friend. They reported that their neighbors were more concerned with helping others, with supporting one another. They had stronger feelings of belonging to a community. They had pride in their community, this green space where they could all gather, and they were more engaged in social activities. So again, just bringing green space even into urban environments can be helpful. So ways to connect with nature to help your mental health. Again, this doesn't have to be movement. I'm passionate about movement, but anytime you're in nature. So whether you're swimming and walking and listening to the birds, looking out for wildlife. Ted is a bird watcher, so looking out for birds, planting a garden, even watching a nature documentary. So when there's some studies that show hospital rooms that actually have a view of nature versus a view of, the building next door, actually experienced decreased pain sensation and some faster healing. So just having a view of nature can be of benefit. And growing your own vegetables here in this community, we're very plant forward, so we love to grow our own fruits and vegetables. So we can't have a lifestyle medicine talk without talking about the nature effects in the gut microbiome. And so this is a study that came out not too long ago that looked at the microbiota it was actually with some preschool children, and looked at fecal serotonin. So the study was 54 preschool age children, and they were involved in a 10-week nature-related structured play and grow program. And so you can see what these kids are doing. They were encouraged to just play outside and make their own playgrounds out of nature and dig in the dirt and roll in the dirt, just like we all used to do growing up. And so what they found was after this 10-week program, they reported a more significant connection to nature. They had decreased perceived overall stress and anger, and they did poop studies. So they looked at the gut microbiome, and they actually saw an increase in roseburia, which produces butyrate. We know that butyrate is one of the short chain fatty acids, along with acetate and propionate, that is so intricate in the gut microbiome and all the healing mechanisms that go on. And they also saw an increase in fecal serotonin level. We know that serotonin is our happy hormone. We also know that about 90% of our serotonin resides in our gut microbiome. So it would make sense that as we are increasing short chain fatty acids, such as butyrate, we would see a higher production of serotonin. Again, another gut microbiome, physical activity and change in the gut microbiota. So we see a progressive increase in physical activity generates changes in the intestinal microbiota. So going from sedentary, watching TV, being on our computers all day, to light activity, to intense activity, we see that slope of those healthy short chain fatty acids producing species and increasing bacterial diversity, which we all know is so intricate to a healthy gut microbiome. So movement in nature, we've talked about movement, we've talked about nature, and then combining them. So the health benefits of movement in nature, it can help lower blood pressure and stress hormone levels, reduce nervous system arousal, enhance immune function system, increase self-esteem, reduce anxiety. And we talked about the suggested dosage. I mean, even within 2 minutes of moving and exposure to nature, we can see some decrease in tension and muscle and blood pressure. We saw that sweet spot is about 20 to 30 minutes. And then spending 2 hours to 2 days is where we see even the larger benefits. So forms of movement in nature. Again, I like to say movement. I don't care how my patients move their bodies, they just need to move. So many, and this list is not even, it goes much more beyond this, but walking and jogging and gardening and hiking and biking and swimming and skiing and bird watching, yoga and Tai Chi, kayaking, canoeing, fishing. And I love this picture. We've got this family and we've got mom with one of her children just kind of slowly walking and dad up ahead, leaping through the forest and his other kids chasing him. So we talked about gardening and just even getting out there. And that's really, what I can, as people age and my patients age and maybe not able to do as much of the weight bearing and physical activity, but are still able to garden and just getting in that dirt, right? And just around plants that reduces our stress. Just digging in the dirt, the gut microbiome. It can be a workout. You can mow your lawn, you can pull weeds, and we grow our own food. So that's a plant-forward diet and also can help with dementia. So I see this every day in clinic and we're so good as humans with coming up with excuses. So perceived barriers of movement in nature, or for that matter, any kind of movement. So I don't have the time, I'm working or I'm taking care of my kids or I'm taking care of other family members. I just don't have the time. Or financial, I can't join a gym. I don't have the money, or I don't have the money to join a club or join a sports team. I'm getting older. I'm worried about falling. What if I get hurt? My body, I just don't feel comfortable going to a gym. I don't feel comfortable wearing, sports clothing. Accessibility. I live in a city. I live not in a good area. I just I don't feel safe where I can go outside and exercise. I'm just not motivated. Like I've never been an exerciser. I'm just not really interested. Exercise is boring. Like I don't want to go to a gym and go on I call it the treadmill. I don't want to be on a treadmill and I don't have anyone to do it with it. So lots of excuses, I'm tired. It's too cold. It's too hot. It's raining. It's too late. And I say, let's go. So how do we break down these barriers? This would be my husband. We run 365 days a year. This is Michigan, probably in January or February that we call those, icicle mascara. So they've got nothing on Maybelline mascara. We've got our icicles. So this is how I choose myself to break down barriers is I surround myself with people who like to do similar things. And we can see up in the upper left, that's my 50th birthday. I love to ski. That's out in Colorado. And then that's my family. And we love to, take usually a trip once a year where we can get outdoors and hike. And the kids have just grown up hiking and skiing. They don't know any better. To the right, upper right, is one of my patients. And I just love this story because my patient had really struggled with low self-esteem and body image all of her life. And she came to see me and we talked about the pillars of lifestyle medicine, including plant-based nutrition and movement. She really has gone full stream with this, has gotten off all of her medications. And one day she texted me and she said, Dr. Sundermann, I went out for a walk today, like I always do, and I started running. I just felt so good. I started jogging. She said, I haven't jogged since I was a little kid, but I just felt so good. And now she has grandchildren and she can move and chase her grandchildren, which is all about. Bottom right is climbed our first 14er. That's Pikes Peak with our son, doing half marathon with my husband, and then to the bottom left are my girls. We just did the Zion 50K. This is one of our other 50Ks. So we're all busy professionals, but we make time for, it just helps to have a group, a tribe, accountability. If people are showing up and they say, I want you to be there, I'm apt to show up too. This is a hashtag that I've started. It's called Jumping for Joy. I'm putting it out there on social media. And basically, anytime you're out in nature, it can be your backyard, it can be anywhere. You jump for joy just to be living the life of fresh air, nature, and all the gifts. So we've all seen food pyramids, but this is our nature pyramid. And so really we're starting at the bottom. What do we want to do every day? We just want to get outside, just get in our own yards and gardens, run in the grass, climb on trees if you're safe. Maybe your kids will do that. Get your hands dirty, garden. You can do this. We can do this every day. Weekly, let's try to get, maybe work on your garden, maybe go bird watching on the weekend, maybe, collect rocks, identify plants. There's some great apps you can use. And what can we do monthly? We'll go to your state or your regional park. The number one reason that our parks close is because we don't utilize them. So every month, try to support our local parks. We have so many local parks in all of our areas. And yearly, maybe you take a trip, a destination trip. Maybe you have it on your bucket list to go see a national park, or maybe you can go visit friends and family who live in a different part of the country, and you really can focus on getting out in nature. So I'm going to highlight, just in conclusion, just some really cool programs that are going on all over the world to promote movement in nature. This is ParkRx. This is actually going on in our country. If you go to parkrx.com, they have these prescription pads. You can write prescriptions for nature. And this is a really cool thing where you can go to their website, and in most states, they will have a ParkRx program going on, and you can actually log into there. You can see what programs, they have a lot of education going on. We do know about Walk with a Doc. That's another program that's very well known about getting people to move mostly in nature. So ParkRx. So this is going on right now in Scotland. It's the Nature Prescription Edinburgh trial. And 350 patients received nature prescriptions for 32 different health conditions. Three out of 4 patients reported benefiting from their nature prescription. And 69% received nature prescriptions for the mental health conditions, and 17% of nature prescriptions were for their physical health conditions like obesity and diabetes. 87% said they were likely or very likely to continue their nature prescription. So the more we get patients and individuals to understand the value of being in nature, moving our bodies in nature, they're likely to continue it. So this is a really cool app. It's called Nature Quant, and we all have our smart devices. I've got mine here, my Garmin, but this is an app that can actually track how much you're going out in nature, and you can kind of set goals, and it can tell you, how close are to your goal. So if your weekly goal is 120 minutes, 2 hours in nature, you can see, how'd you do Monday? Okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe you had a really busy day, but let's try to get to that weekly goal. So again, you can download it on the App Store. And there's actually an association of nature and forest therapy guides and programs, which I think is so cool. I think this is what I want to be when I grow up and retire, is that you can get trained to be a forest guide in nature therapy. So you can help people and encourage them to get out in nature. And so this is Dose in Nature. This is what's going on. This is a program in the UK, and they have nature prescriptions, group therapy, workshops. And what is their Dose of Nature prescription? Well, this is really cool. So the Dose of Nature prescription is a 10-week program that introduces individuals to the mental health benefits of spending time in nature. It aims to inspire lifestyle changes that will have a significant and lasting impact on mental well-being. And this is achieved through a combination of education, firsthand experience, and practical and motivational support led by a trained Dose Nature guide. So basically, GP, I'm an internist. I would refer a patient for the Dose of Nature. They're reviewed with a psychological assessment, and then they're referred to a 10-week program where they receive weekly one-on-one programming with a trained Dose of Nature guide. And then the other days, the client commits to getting out 3 to 4 independent nature visits each and every week. And then after the visit, the 10 weeks is done, the psychologist will review it. And then they're referred, if they want to continue on, to many, many group activities. So this is actually a wonderful structured program. Park RX, this is going on in Canada right now. And this was launched in November 2020. It's Canada's first nature prescription, and they recommend spending a minimum of 2 hours per week in nature in at least 20-minute intervals. Again, we're seeing this over and again. 2 hours is your goal, and that sweet spot is like 20 to 30-minute intervals. And Parks, not Park RX, but Parks medical professionals can prescribe Adult Parks Canada Discovery Pass. And this pass covers year-long admission to over 80 destinations across Canada. So really hoping that we here in the US will listen and maybe do something similar. There in the US, there are, I think it's 3 or 4 days per year that there's free access to national parks. So one just came last month. So just be on the lookout for that if you're close to any national parks. This is a really cool program called Casting for Recovery. This is nonprofit. And each year, if you are recovering breast cancer or in survivorship, you can, apply for this Casting for Recovery program. And basically, it takes women out to fishing and fly fishing, and you instruct and you're in nature. And if you think about the movement of casting with fly fishing, and just with a lot of women with their surgeries and their chemo, radiation, a lot of fibrosis, a lot of lymphedema, and decreased motion. And so just the act of fishing can really be therapeutic, both physically, emotionally. And then as we get older, this country does have the park program for senior pass. So for $80, you can get a lifetime pass. And I had a patient the other day who told me about this, and she was a card carrying member. So she was very proud of her senior pass. So she can go any national park in the entire country for free. So we are moving in this direction, and it's great to see. So I will conclude with Hippocrates once again. If you are in a bad mood, go for a walk. If you are still in a bad mood, go for another walk. And that is the conclusion of my talk. So I hope this motivates you and your patients and your family and your loved ones to get outside and move in nature.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Sundermann. I love that last quote. If you're in a bad mood, go for a walk. That's great. So thank you so much for that. I'm also really interested in this nature connection pyramid. That sounds
isn't that great? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
It was when I came across it, I'm like, this is wonderful. I mean, we all know the food pyramids and all this kind of stuff, but just, that we can start at the bottom every day and, work up to just, maybe once a year or once every couple of years to really make a whole trip, dedicated to that.
Yeah, exactly. So we have over 100 people in the audience here. If and here's one of the questions. People, please put questions into the Q&A. So John asks, can similar benefits of soothing, stress release, health benefits be achieved with water? I enjoy being by and on the water and have a blue mind state that seems similar to your forest bathing concept. Please
Absolutely. And that's where you will see a lot of people talk about blue-green, right? So I think that when Shinrin-yoku, it really was focusing on forest bathing, but the more and more research that's going on, we'll talk about blue-green, and Darren Morton, who's doing great work with your Lift project, and I did that program. He has one of his whole series is about blue-green. So absolutely. Some people, I love all kind of nature, but some people feel like, oh, it's just the water and the waves that are so soothing to me, and just being in water, that buoyancy. And other people are like, oh, I just love the mountains and the trees. So any kind of nature. And yes, blue is just as good as green.
Sure. And we know that from the studies been done with the natural killer cells with being on the water, do we know? Or?
Well, I don't know if I have not seen those studies specifically. So I don't know if those actually have been done with the NK cells, but I do know that there's similar overall benefits.
Yeah. Okay, great. Joyce asks, what if you can't get to a forest? Will your yard have the same benefits?
Yes. So we're talking about phytoncides. And so just from our trees, absolutely. So they just, emit these oils that have these powerful healing mechanisms. So yes, just getting outdoors. And again, when we're talking about our gut microbiome, just being around nature and dirt and all of that. So yep, go in your backyard and garden, or just be, in your backyard, or, go for a walk. We, sometimes people have rails to trails or paved pathways, whatever, just be outside.
Excellent. Thank you for that. What about, someone asked, are you familiar with Holly Meeker's ornithotherapy?
No, I would love to learn about it though.
Steve Melcher, can we ask you to discuss that with us, please? I know you're not shy, Bob, can our engineer make him advance him up here or not?
Just give me a second.
Okay, sure. Steve, I hope you're feeling, I hope you're not shy tonight.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Steve.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, great. Tell us about
Welcome from
ornithotherapy.
welcome from Odonata Sanctuary. Ornithotherapy is Holly Merker's project, and she's a cancer survivor, and she's a birder, but she uses birding to focus as a mindfulness type thing. She found that when she was birding and concentrating on like a single bird, or that she completely forgot about her cancer therapy and the pain that she was going through. So it's a combination of a nature therapy as well as mindfulness focusing, but she calls it ornithotherapy, and she leads Audubon groups and different groups around the country to working with teenagers as well to try to use birding as a way of not only getting out in nature, but also focusing on using mindfulness as a way to focus away from the pain of chemotherapy.
It's wonderful. And that absolutely makes so much sense. In fact, I have 2 patients right now that I just saw within the past couple of weeks that are friends and avid bird watchers, and they're both in their, probably late 70s, and they take these birding trips, and just to have them talk about their birding trips, it was so inspiring to me. And just like you said, it's an act of meditation where, you're so focused on, sights and sounds, and really what these patients were telling me is they said the birds teach us so much, we learn just from their calls and their interactions with one another. It's just a beautiful activity to do. And with bird watching, you're moving, you're got your binoculars and you move around looking for different birds. So thank you for sharing that. I will definitely probably add that to this presentation.
Yeah, she has a book out called Ornithotherapy. So look it up.
Okay, I will.
Yes.
Thank you.
Steve, thank you so much for sharing that. I know when I take people on birding expeditions at the annual Vegetarian Summerfest, and every year we go out at like 6 in the morning, and I tell people to just stand in the forest, close their eyes, and just take in all the sights, all the sounds. Just actually close your eyes and just listen, because so much of birding is about listening and just experiencing the forest. We want to see things, but we also want to just hear things and smell things, and everything about the forest is just so amazing.
Well, that's what I will tell my patients too, who, we talk about mindfulness and the power of meditation. And I think that a lot of people get intimidated by that. They think that, I don't know how to do that. And I can't calm my brain enough. And so I use nature a lot. And I say, just go outside. And for the first 5 minutes, I want you to just focus on, like you said, like sounds. What are you hearing? Maybe you live near a highway and you can hear cars, but maybe you're hearing some of the birds because it's the first thing in the morning. I live on a street, they've got chickens, so I hear chickens, and just, paying attention to that sense. Then shift for the next 5 minutes to what do you see? Do you see that it's springtime in Michigan? I'm seeing that some of the blooms are coming out, and there I see a little bunny rabbit. There's a cardinal. So again, the mindfulness does not have to be just sitting in silence. We can teach other ways to be mindful and just being in the present moment.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody asked, it says, great information. Are there any state park wellness programs in Michigan?
So there is one listed on that website. If you go to Park RX in Michigan, there were 2 programs listed. It looks like they were up in northern Michigan. So yes, there were 2 listed on that Park RX. If you go to Park RX website, pull up that map, and actually you don't click on the map, but they have all the states listed, and there are 2 programs in Michigan.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Molly asks, most of my patients have pain and mobility issues. How do you recommend patients with a lot of pain and rely on canes, walkers, wheelchairs engage with nature?
So again, we saw just actually being in nature, we saw the benefits, right? So those early studies from Dr. Lee was just being in nature, elevated our natural killer activities, reduced our blood pressure, salivary cortisol, heart rate variability. So if you can't move, and that's okay. And so, and then a lot of trails, I am on a board here in Michigan in the Ann Arbor area that we're creating non-motorized paved pathways so that they are accessible. So if patients are in wheelchairs, or they have recumbent bikes just for safety, that they are paved pathways without any motor vehicle. But again, just being in nature, just having, a chair outside and just absorbing the sounds and sights. So you don't have to move. Absolutely not.
All right, I hope that answers that question. What about aromatherapy? That's my own question. Can you duplicate the whatever the smells or anything that?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. They in that one study in the hotel rooms, he had the sense of the cypress trees. So I don't know how he actually rigged that up, but I guess I would imagine if you actually had that same kind of tree or forest, that if you had those phytoncides, that you could see that healing mechanism. There are like essential oils that people, I've got lots of patients who use them who feel that they are healing in power. So yes, and it's just like, I think we talk about with our plants and our eating, that yes, you can take a fiber supplement, but best to have the whole plant where you get the whole package. So instead of smelling just a scent, best to just go outside and get the whole package.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Now you mentioned earlier about physical activity as a vital sign. Could you elaborate on that? How do you use that, and how do you?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing, and I use Epic EMR, and as I was researching this chalk, I had my medical assistant say, hey, I think, does Epic have this as a vital sign? And it actually is available in Epic, that you could input this data. We don't utilize it at my group, but really, making that part of just, as we, our MAs or whoever is rooming our patients, of taking, blood pressure and heart rate and pulse, of just asking, like, do you exercise? How many days a week? What activity? And so I know with certain electronic medical records, that is being introduced as a true vital sign, and knowing the importance of movement and exercise.
Okay, interesting. And then you mentioned there was an app that tracks your time outdoors. It seems like kind of I don't want to use it. What's the term?
Right.
It seems like a
dichotomy of like, we're supposed to be disconnected, but the future is right that that's the future. It's smart devices, and again, accountability. I mean, I love nature, but I'll tell you what, I got my Garmin, and every day I can't help but look, how many steps did I get? How did I sleep last night? It can be, I look at my resting heart rate and I think, oh God, that was a busy weekend. My son graduated. That's why my resting heart rate was elevated. So I think this is the wave of the future. When we're in nature, let's be present, but I think it can help us to, if we have a certain goal, to help us keep track.
Sure. Someone else was wondering, appreciating the work done with the housing complexes, but wondering if this will be another source of healthcare disparities.
Yeah. No, I absolutely. It is right. I mean, it's a study that proves what we probably know is true, right? And whether we can achieve that. But sometimes maybe it is just in what space you have to, cultivate some kind of green space, and that doesn't have to be an elaborate courtyard, right? What little things can we do of just having like a small plot for a garden, or so it doesn't have to be elaborate. I think just stating simple that any kind of green space is helpful.
Right. I think we see that with so many great cities and so many great city parks, like Central Park.
Right.
Great cities in Europe that have so much great green space. Okay,
Yeah.
now somebody's asking for a product endorsement.
A product endorsement. Okay.
They say there are so many exercise watches. I'd like to get one. Do you recommend Garmin?
That's what I have. So per my bio, I'm pretty active. I'm in my 50s now, so I'm slowing down a lot, and I'm not fancy, right? There's fancy models. Basically, this one, I trust Garmin. I can link it to my phone. It tracks, my activity. It tracks my heart rate. It makes me feel good because it says my fitness age is like 26. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I like Garmin, but Apple Watches, people use Apple Watches a lot. And there is a cost associated. I don't have a fancy one. I think you can, get one, for less than $100. And even if you have a smartphone, that can track your steps and can track your sleep too. You've just got to keep it near you at all times, which we don't always want to be connected. So I use Garmin. My running friends, we all use Garmin. It seems like a good product, but I have no financial, interest in it.
Sure. Actually, while we're on the subject of gadgets, I'm going to show you one of the gadgets that I use. This is my handheld dictaphone. And when I go running, I keep a bird list, but I don't like to interact with, when I'm running, I can't interact with my phone. And when I'm walking, I don't like to interact with my phone either. So I will dictate the bird that I've seen. And it's like having a companion with me. I just say, hey, blue jay, three Canada geese, 2 turkey vultures. And I just keep talking here. And then when I get back, I down, I listen to the list again and enter it that way.
That's great. That just can't get into any of your radiology reports when you're dictating, right?
I got to be careful about that. Exactly. Well, Dr. Sundermann, thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen for just a minute. And let's see, I've got some, let's see. Go back to that. So if you are unshared, I'm going to share my screen here. Here we go. And there it is. So, whoops, is that showing up or not? Probably not. That looks like
There it is.
You see my slideshow? Or are you seeing back to meeting? That's weird. Here it is. Okay,
next month's lecture.
Okay, there we go. Perfect. Okay, got it. Thank you, Bob. So next month's lecture is Jeff Novick, who will be speaking on lesson label reading, how to choose the healthiest foods. And I know he has been working with John McDougall for many years. And I saw earlier that John McDougall was in the audience. Hello, John. And let's see, there's my bird. And then just to let you know, some of the RLMI facilitated programs, Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute. We have our own 15-day whole food plant-based jumpstart. We have the Lift Project. We run CHIP and Pivio. And so that is my shameless plug. And I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm just going to thank Dr. Sundermann so much. It was such a pleasure to see you and to have you with us. And this has been recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel probably in a day or so. And we'll send you all a link to that. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Sundermann. It's great to see you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Ted, and everyone.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. And everyone have a good night. Thanks, Bob.